Hello, this is Elena Roche and my tutorial on drawing your first still life part 2. In part 1 of this tutorial, I cover composition and construction of your first still life according to the Russian academic drawing method. My Classical Art Education Center is a Blue Ridge Academy's approved vendor. Alright, so clean up as much as you can. If some of these lines are still visible under, no big deal, as long as they are not messing with visuals too much, right? This we want to leave, we want to see that, so don't lose the important ones, your direction. As you clean up, keep an eye on the structure, right? So like in cleaning up right here, I'm looking at this would be my end of the table. Right here is where it's gonna go darker and vertical. So all of those multiple lines, they just disappear into the shading. Get me a piece of tape again. Right back there. This edge of the table is not very defined, right? It's not strongly defined. It just needs to be close enough to what we're looking at. Right direction, right perspective. But it doesn't have to be super sharp. The fabric just bends very mildly. So as long as it doesn't have any weird shapes in it to it, you'll be fine. You can adjust its direction and incline as you are shading. Because as you're shading, you're not going to have anything very strong in here, right? It's gently rolling, so no sharp lines. When you are drawing this, now that we're going into a little more fun, a little more artistic light and shadow part, at least I hope it's fun. Think about how it will relate to everyday objects. Everyday objects that are also cube and cylinder-like. If you have anything at home and you're using it, you're used to seeing it, pay attention to how the light and shadow work on those everyday objects while you're working on light and shadow on this still life. It will be very helpful to you. Because our next still life is going to be everyday objects that conform to these two shapes. All right, so I already have basically all of this side separated. The shadow on the table, the shadow on the cast shadow on the cylinder. This side is all in the shadow as well. And this shadow is sort of like forming, but it's not too defined yet. So what I can do right now is also, so this is not too strongly showing through, I'll lighten this up. So right here, I already know, we did that black and white study. This is where I know already it's going to be, if this is light, this is going to be darker. But because this is shadow, this is going to be lighter. So this is where I'm going to clean it up a little bit lighter so I don't lose that shape of the cylinder in here. And I'll define this here a bit more. All right, so basic separation of light and shadow is your first step, and we are already pretty close to having gone through that step. You want to establish all of your main areas of what's going to be basically light and basically dark. So when you separate them into light and dark, like when we did the study for the still life on black paper, and you worked from all dark into light, right? What did you learn there about light and dark and why we should be separating them? What did we do the very first step?
Oh, on the black paper?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we shaded everything, basically.
We gave it a lighter value, right? And that pushed it away from all dark, from like as black as it can go.
Yeah.
Because on this still life, it doesn't go very black.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you're starting with all white and you're adding value, you need to look for what is the darkest part, right? And what is the darkest on this still life?
It seems like for me, from where I'm at, it's on the cylinder, the shadow there.
Right.
That's the darkest, and then the bottom of it.
Right. Yeah, let me just adjust the lamp a bit, because I think the lamp got moved slightly. Okay. All right. Under the cylinder, this the darkest one, and I already have it pretty dark in here, because I was already like keeping an eye on that fact. Then that means that if we just give everything a darker value, so even darker than what we have, and as you see, I am going very fast with my side of the pencil kind of flat. I am trying to get rid of the white paper as much as possible. I don't have that strong cross-hatching in here yet. You don't have the full handle on cross-hatching yet, so you don't worry about it. We are worrying about not how you handle your pencil, but how you capture the values now.
Yeah.
That's the most important part. So here we go. I kind of flattened it out by having a one even value here, darker than what I had before, knowing that this is a strong part in the shadow. I want to achieve about the same value here as well. Changing direction helps, because that helps to keep it in the separate parts of objects. So this is a cast shadow on the table. Go in a different direction. Helps to separate it from the cube side. So now that I see it change a little bit, right? I'm going to look like, okay, it's definitely this is a very similar angle, but right here it's where I can just shave it off a bit. So all I am doing is paying attention, how is this part where it changes relates to, let's say, this corner. See, I'm looking at it. It seems like it's doing something like this. And you can probably put the pencil in there as well. Transfer that angle, basically transfer this position. Okay, so, and it's very vague. Where is it the sharpest? Where is the shadow the sharpest?
Right on the edge, right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
So here is where I can already start sharpening it up as I'm filling it in. And as I'm filling it in, I'm also working on sharpening up all of my lines, because I know that the little tiny occlusion shadow is going to be under this cube here, where the fabric goes under. But that occlusion shadow is not going to spilling into the face of the cube. That's going to be a different value. So that can stay a little bit thinner now. Clean this up a bit more. This is going to be sharp here. This is going to be sharp. And this is going to start getting softer. Softness we'll work on first. We'll work on later. Softness is not important at this point. Now we're just separating everything that's going to be light. What is casting this shape of a shadow?
Oh, like why is it that shape specifically?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because of the curve.
Yeah, it's curving because of the cylinder.
Yeah.
But where is this coming
Oh,
from? What's
that's
casting?
from the back of the cube.
So this back end,
Yeah.
that's forming this point here. So, for example, I want to know the angle, right? So if I tap it right here, it's definitely this point.
Yeah.
If I tap it here,
Yeah.
do you see? Well, you still see it. When
Yeah.
you go back here,
You don't see it. But
But if you connect this two, you get the angle of the lamp. If you connect this, it goes straight toward the lamp and it forms 90-degree angle. So that's how, if you're drawing anything else from now on, even if you're inventing something and you want it to look like a realistic light, you always connect this two. You find something that is obviously casting this shadow here, you connect this corner to corner, you end up pointing directly to the lamp. So the angle of the light is like this. That's your angle of the light. That means that this angle of the light is going to be casting this shadow because of the cylinder side as well. So if this is too vague and you can't figure out, maybe fabric is a little bumpy and not flat enough, you can also just figure out where that's going to go. You just need to know, obviously the brightest light is right here. This is slightly less light here because it's already rolling away, but which part of the edge is going to be casting which part of the shadow. Again, the beauty of doing it from light. You come here, you see where this is, where the shadow is getting changed. You see this?
Yeah.
This is your last tip, that curvature that is curving away from you, from your view, and it's casting this part of the shadow. So that's what you connect. So you don't connect this, you connect that, right? So if this is your angle here, this will be your angle here. That means this shadow is going to be slightly shortened. Now, this is flat vertical, similar to that, different angle. That is fairly easy to capture the main angle. You can just transfer it by looking at it. That's close enough. And the rest, since this is the tip, the rest is going to be the side, right? And you look at how is that side forming and going behind. The irregularity of the fabric and whatever else makes it a bit more rounded, not super sharp and pointy, not, at least not like this. It doesn't matter. You just look at it and see. And for you, I'll go straighten out the fabric a bit better. But basically, this is it, right? You can see that, for example, the angle of the shadow and the angle of this side are extremely similar. Because, well, that's the only way the light can slide consistently along that angle. All right, so for example, if you make this angle more like that, you better explain it by folds in the fabric. Fabric would not be very flat with the table lamp. It is similarly, if it goes down further, you also need to explain fabric must be bending and warping the shape of the shadow. But this one is close enough to being flat, so we're not going to be warping anything. We're going to focus on the realism of it here. as if the table is more flat. All right, so we got that. Let's get better values in here. This looks close enough. So give it another value. And right now, all of the values are going to look extremely similar to each other, minus this in the darkest one. But even if they were exactly the same, it'd still be fine. What we want to do is we want to give it a good start by definitely separating them. If you give them the first pass of values and they are too light, you will not have enough room here to work with. Because this is the brightest, this is in the direct light, but it's not so bright as that, not as bright as the table. And the back wall, it has a similar situation to this wall, because it's vertical. It has a little wrinkles and all, which overall adds up to giving it a darker value, darker but not the shadow value. So right now you need to hit it to where you look at these shadows overall and you compare them to how your background would go, which is going to be not super light, and you need to give it enough separation. Okay? Enough separation by values, how dark it is. If you go too dark, like this, all over the place, you will then start having the opposite problem to where you won't have enough room to work within the darker values because considerable amount of light reflects in them. And when the light reflects in them, you won't have enough room if they are too dark to make that reflection visible. We are working with white objects. White objects are the easiest to see all of these nuanced values in. Later, you'll be adding another layer to your still life where your objects are going to be different value to start with. So, in your still life painting, for example, you have a red apple. Red apple, remember the first thing we learned about red? How it's tricky. It's actually quite a bit of a darker value. If you were drawing a red apple with just pencil, no color, you would have to give it a darker value pretty much from the beginning to separate it from all the light objects. See how I went along in this direction? And this line is practically disappearing, my construction line, right? You remember, so your line can make something appear or disappear. It's up to you how you use it. Line next to a line can blend it, or it can emphasize it. Obviously, when it curves like this here, it emphasizes the edge. This emphasizes the edge. But when I went along another line and made it disappear, that's your good trick to remember. I'm going to go a little bit in this direction now, make this line disappear, or almost disappear. And that is why I was saying don't worry about too many lines that you don't erase if they're too dark, construction lines. Don't worry about that. Alright, that's good enough for now. See, I have this vertical line still popping through somewhat. I will go ahead and make that disappear as well. Even though I like going horizontally, I want this line to disappear. I will go ahead and add a few vertical ones. What I'm doing is I'm adding a slight change in value. So, slightly darker value, right? But I'm going in the same direction. And while I'm not darkening this whole area too much, what I'm achieving is a layer that's a layer of values, layer of pencil. That's going to be way on the bottom eventually, because I'm going to go over it with the other pencil marks in this other directions you will not even notice that there is anything vertical in there. Okay? Based on the study we did on black and white paper, what do you think the next step here should be?
I would say go over the second lightest ones in a really light color.
Uh-huh. Now, if you're stepping back, you already see that the light is appearing, the shadows seem kind of good, right?
Yeah.
It seems three-dimensional and it has a nice light and shadow effect.
Mm-hmm.
So now we can start going into first step of details that are not super details within the light and within the shadow. Okay, so if all of this main shadows look exactly the same, good, because all of our light looks almost the same except for all this earlier sketchiness. So now let's go ahead and do that. So if I go in here, I like this angle for the background. Now I am not going to do it too solid and too close together like I did here. Now my lines are going to be a little further apart. When you have them a little bit further apart, paper shines through, you get a certain airy look to it. The value changes, the value gets darker. But it doesn't get darker too much. And now would be good to start on the line and go away from the line, like just like that, okay? If your pencil is long, it's easier to do that. So you can go like this. And if you want to fill up all of this area, you go from this direction. Essentially what you want to do is this kind of joining. If you go back and forth without lifting the pencil up and you come back over it, you will end up with doubling over your value and it's not going to be so pretty. Although you can make a whole style out of it if you want to. Alright, my arrow can go now. So you can make these lines as long as short as you want. Just up to you how you get the hang of it. Again, it's a lot to ask in the beginning to do a nice even cross hatching, but try to get it as best as you can. As you can see, my pencil is fairly flat against the paper, right? Mm-hmm. It gives me thicker lines. Even though my lines are not very sharp, they're thicker and they fill in the area faster. Okay, now I'll go from the other direction. Fill this in. What is happening is that here it's much more dotted, here I lift off the pencil. So you can get used to doing that. When you lift off the pencil, the ends of your lines end up being thinner. And when you go toward each other with your lines, you end up having a good overlap, nearly undetectable. Because these lines are thinner than here, and this, as you start here, are thicker, and as you left off, are thinner. So it fills in nicely. Also, right here, you can just go over both places and not worry about this edge at this point. Our main concern is to separate the values. And as you can already see, this value here is lighter, but right here, because I had the previous lines, it's already starting to look similar to here, right? Note that there aren't any of those darker values in that background cloth. It has some shadows in it and so on. But you just need to make sure that in general, overall value is definitely lighter than the shadows. Right here, this is also much darker. You can just go over the whole thing. All right, I'll add this a bit of more overlay value here. Suggest the table is turning. All right, background is getting slightly darker, and actually when I step back I don't see much competition between this. It's close, but it's not really competing. Now this one, right? Mm-hmm. So again, you can just go ahead and fill in the whole thing. Give it the whole thing that medium kind of light value. Now that we are filling in nuances within the direct light, it's a good time to note where a very brightest, lightest light of all is going to be, where we need to focus on saving white paper. So where's the white paper going to be saved?
On the very edge of here,
Uh-huh.
I'd say, and then right here specifically, not up
Right.
here, but like right here.
Right. And perhaps a little bit more somewhere
yeah.
on the table.
Yeah, on the table.
Yeah. Perhaps right here, next to that, to emphasize. And I would say we could also save it for a little bit of this edge if we wanted to emphasize the edge.
Mm-hmm.
But if we want the viewer to just focus on the two objects and not worry about the edge, we don't have to emphasize it. So it just depends on how far you want to go with this. All right, so I'll give it a little bit more because right now it's very, very light. But just a little bit more value. And so again, while I know that my light will intensify next to this dark, I am not focusing on those details, and you shouldn't focus on those details. You just need to get through this first step of staking out your territory. And by that we mean, here it's going to be all of our lightest, between very white paper and slightly darker. Here's going to be everything in the medium range, mid-tone. Here it's going to be between brightest and mid-tones. Here it's going to be between brightest, very bright on the edge, very light, and then mid-tones, right? And as usual, when it goes away from us, the intensity of light is not as strong, so we don't want anyone to pay attention too much here, so this will also get a little more into the mid-tone range, right? Here we'll be paying attention because of how the cube will interact with the lighter table. All right, but it doesn't mean that you should do it all very, very sharp. All right, so how is my cube value compared to that value? Similar. Well, that's fine. Even more cleanup. So, based on what you learned before, what do you think I should do next?
You can start maybe a little bit, maybe darken the darker areas and the shadows. You can do that.
The cylinder still needs mid-tone.
Yeah, cylinder needs mid-tone.
So we've done the background, first big area, easy to spot. This one is next. This one's probably the smallest, right? So it grabs less attention. But nonetheless, it is similar to the vertical right in here, right? So you know that right through here, where the cylinder starts to become more vertical, and this is your construction line, by the way. So this is where your rectangular prism into which it fit was vertical, right? And this is where the connection point is. That means definitely at this connection point, the cylinder is facing toward light in exactly the same angle as this. So technically, right from here on down, right? From here on down, you can achieve the same value right away, like without even looking at the cylinder. It's just plain.
But then I
logic.
see that it's a little lighter on the very bottom.
But it's not like super light,
Yeah.
right? It's a reflection.
Okay.
Yeah. But basically you got this, but because it's not straight, but it's continuing to turn more toward light, is where we can add a little value to where it's going to be definitely transitioning toward lighter. But right now we can just even go like this. Midtone, shadow. Where are you going to be here? You're going to be between the total shadow and midtone. Alright. So now the next step. Darken. You were going to say darken the shadows.
Darken, well, maybe not like it fully, but at least darker areas of shadows.
So now we can go and start adding more details within the shadows, right?
Yeah.
For example, this one is more dark, definitely next to our main sides where they change into light. Okay, so what kind of shape basically you see in the darkness?
Sorry, maybe just my side, but I see it like a triangle-ish right here, but then a triangle like this. But then it's light in the middle.
All right. So you see that, and you ask yourself, what is kind of causing it, right? Furthest away from the reflected light. That is from the surfaces that reflect strong white light. Furthest away, closer. Here it should be closer, but what happens? This shadow interferes, right? The shadow disallows more light to reflect, so it forms a little darker area here. This is receiving all of this reflected light and from the cylinder. But this is furthest away, and it meets this lighter areas, stronger direct light, so it is kind of almost like a crescent. The way I'm looking at it, I'm seeing like it's definitely strongest along the edge here, and it kind of becomes lighter, but here it starts to almost like a crescent turn, and it keeps this area darker than that, because this area also meets that strong light, right? So I'll go ahead and do that. I think pretty soon I'll be switching to a softer pencil. I don't want it to look cut out, so I'm just basically playing, watching how I am spacing my lines, how much I push on my pencil. So you see the third step is to already start going into some detail within light and shadow. The first step, forget about detail, just main shapes. Just fill them in. Get close, not as dark, not as light. Alright, so here I've added that. Almost a crescent look. All right, so because there is a little bit of a reflection, the brighter reflection gets interrupted by this darker area, by this shadow, I will go ahead and get that in. Why not? And you said you'd see it a little more triangular, right? So that's, it subsides down to here, subsides to here, but it rises up a bit here. Also kind of disappears, blends with the rest. Alright, so now we've done basic separation. We have three: darkest, lightest, darkest again, not as dark as that. Three different values within that. Let's see what we can do with that. Maybe we can get three different values within this cast shadow. What do you think?
Which one? Which cast shadow?
This cast shadow. Three different variations on.
Well, this is definitely the lightest right here. This is like really sharp and dark, and along the edge, a little bit. This right here is the darkest. Overall, it gets lighter here, but it's still the dark.
Correct.
Like second darkest.
Right. So that means that I'm looking for the shape of the darker compared to the lighter, right? And I see that it kind of wants to combine with this turn here, actually.
Yeah,
right?
I see. Again, I didn't put it out, but here's light. There's a light streak, and then this is like a shadow from here.
Right.
There.
So that's what I'll focus on now. First, I will separate. So this area definitely looks lighter. I will go ahead and separate them. This becomes darker. I'm giving it a darker value all over. All right. Now this looks lighter, this looks darker. And this one looks darker only under the cylinder, right? So I kind of like how this looks right now. Still seems to be darker than here. Just sharpen it perhaps a bit. And clean up this little darker lines here that appeared. Okay. All right. So maybe just a little more emphasis here. That's what's changing right here. Okay. All right, and the darkest part is forming somewhere in here and somewhat spreading away from this edge and under there, right? So I already have nice darker lines here. I'll just keep them, let them work for me. And I will darken it right into the corner. Alright. Now we see darker, medium, lighter, darker. I will sharpen this just a little bit here because I want to keep an eye on my edge of the cylinder. The edge of the cylinder is very tricky here because it's turning under. The occlusion shadow forms in there, but some reflections come in and lighten up its own shadow from the turn. Alright, I do need to switch to a darker pencil soon. Alright, so next thing, just pick a shadow and go to the same. Pick a shadow.
That's this one.
Okay.
I see it's darkest right here, and then right here it's a circular shape. Maybe a tiny bit right here, but that's the like the least.
And the lightest?
Oh, the lightest, it again goes like this, kind of.
So it's somewhat similar to the cube, but we're working with more rounded shapes. Already I have this lines darker, so I will go ahead and emphasize how this darkness spreads now. And how does it spread? It really is more intense right here. Then it becomes lighter. It still is kind of intense here. And here. But as it goes toward the middle of the elliptical flat plane, it becomes lighter. All of this light here, even though it's not as strong, it still is making this edge look a bit darker on the edge. Okay, and to emphasize that, and we don't want it to look too much like a line, I will go in this direction, basically make that line disappear. This changes direction, make that disappear. And see, I'm pointing my pencil down so my lines are thin. That allows me to make thin, straight lines and blend it really nicely and softly. Not pushing down too hard, but I am making very thin lines. Okay, so this is now getting definitely darker than the rest of the shadow. And within that, this shadow also prevents some light from being reflected right here, right? So darken that. We want this to definitely look somewhat darker than the reflected light within here. The nuances of how, whereas it's the most lightest reflection, we're not going into yet. We're just taking out the three main territories. The darkest of the darks, medium, medium dark here, and the lightest within the shadow. All right. Where can I also lose my line a bit is right here, because, remember what I was saying? I already knew that it will intensify next to my white background, so I will make that disappear now. And here we have to judge a little bit extra. How we're going to handle that when we're doing that background. I'll hold off on that for now. All right, now we have this and this left, right? So let's pick which one.
We can do this one.
Let's see. This one we've done.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. I see it the darkest actually right here. On this corner.
Yeah.
Compared to this one at least. It's light over here. And then it's like the shadow goes like this.
Yeah.
But not for too long.
Right.
Just diagonal. And then here it gets lighter again.
So almost like there is a diagonal between that
Yeah.
corner like this, right?
Yeah.
A darker shadow. It also intensifies along this edge, even though it's not very sharp. So I will be careful not to make too much of the dark lines here, because I do want this to be more soft. However, I do want it to be more intense in darkness. I want to achieve that value. And by the way, do you notice anything different about me? Do you know anything different? Notice anything different about me?
You have no glasses on? Yeah.
Do I need my glasses?
I mean, I don't know why.
Because
have
it's
contacts?
easier to see.
Oh.
No, I don't have contacts. I don't like them. But it's easier to see all the main light and shadow without glasses. I put the glasses on, I see too much detail, too tempting to start going into detail. Now, when you're a mature artist, maybe it's not totally a bad thing because you already know how it's supposed to look at the end. But when you're doing this step by step, it's better to like keep yourself back from seeing too much.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So I do see this as a main darkness. There is more nuance with it, but we will first make it slightly darker, right? And like you said, diagonally it will, and somewhat bending also, curving with the side of the cylinder. But the interesting thing is, because this is getting strong reflection, right? So this darkness here ends up showing us that the cylinder goes behind the cube nicely. And the difference is actually quite a bit in here. There's quite a bit of a difference between values. So, see how I'm darkening it, right? And suddenly this side of the cube is no longer vague. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't know how to do it to be vague. But right here, we don't need it vague. Where we do need the same effect and vagueness is when it's further away. This is still fairly close. Not as close as that, but not so much distance away that we shouldn't be seeing that and emphasizing that difference. Now, what is happening here? This darkness, as it approaches the darkest shadow under the cylinder, that starts to become lighter. But here we go. This is your darkest dark. Now we staked out that. Now I will not touch that for now anymore, because I want definitely to have medium, dark, medium. And this one here kind of starts a little bit darker and then becomes lighter. So medium, dark, medium, lightest, right? So still we're keeping it within our three main areas. And that's okay. And which one now? The cast shadow?
Yeah, the last one.
From the cylinder. And that one?
Is the darkest on this,
Uh-huh.
is the lightest right here.
And the medium?
The medium is on the edge here, but it's the lightest like in the middle right here.
Good, good. And that makes sense, right? Because this meets that light. So if it wasn't meeting that light, it would be staying lighter. But it needs to intensify a bit. Okay, so I'll darken this area. I will leave it the way it is, and I will give this a bit more. Now, it's considerably, it's not so mild. Give it a bit more. And this tip is also, I would say it's more like medium with the darkest one right here. All right. There's a little bit of a vagueness because of the irregularity of the fabric, so I don't want to make it too sharp. All right, so now we can do the same with the light. Right? So let's do the cube, the more obvious one.
Okay, well, I see it the darkest right here. Well, especially on the line right here. And on this line, I guess, a little bit. But this one mainly. In the middle right here. On the line. But it goes, like the shadow goes a little like this.
Yeah.
Is the lightest in this bottom corner. Like this. Up.
Yes.
Lightest.
Right. So basically, if I keep this value and only start darkening this all over first, right? I'll go in the same direction first, but I'll keep myself away from touching here and touching here. I should very softly suggest that those are the brighter portions. Ah. What do you think about this color?
Which one? This one? Well, it's kind of interesting because it's dark right here, but then it gets light right here.
Very quickly.
Yeah, half of it is like dark, half of it is light.
It's not even like this, half and half. It's more like way steep. So I will suggest that it's definitely dark along this line, and then I will just go vertical with my darkness. So along here, I also want to emphasize the edge, and I will go in this direction. But the same thing happens over here, basically. The darkness goes away at a very sharp angle. So now the delicate part is not to overdo this value as dark as any of those values, right? So for now I'll stop at this. I'll hold that for now, it's good enough. Where do you want to go next?
We can go up, I guess. But up is like not a lot at all. So so it's like very light, I would say.
And by up you mean?
Oh, on the upper cube.
Oh, this, the top of the cube. Alright, yeah.
Well, it's very subtle, but it's basically, I see a darkest over here. This is the lightest, but then I see this tiny strip that is also light, but maybe, I don't know.
And why do you think that? Why do you think you see that?
Maybe it reflects the back, but I don't think that would make sense.
Well, the background. What does the background look like?
I mean, the background is white, but it is darker.
Considerably darker.
Yeah.
Right. So it's that same effect of light intensifying. This is the most facing into light parts. Not 90 degree, but not too bad, not too far away. So considerably more than the vertical ones. So what I am seeing is that it's almost like through the middle, this gets definitely a darker value. And then the edges, where they meet other sides, they stay lighter. So for now I will separate that, like the middle. And even though it does get slightly darker toward the edge, it's especially apparent over here. It still is, the edges are going to be still slightly lighter than the middle. But to make it look right and to make these lines disappear that define the cube for us, we have to now go to the background, right?
Yeah.
So while here the background is slightly lighter, here it's noticeably darker. That's good. So I kind of got this darker here. So I will go ahead and continue, and I'll just go along this line in the same direction. And why am I doing this?
To make the lighter part of like the very edge of the cube stand out.
Yeah, and make that line that defined it disappear.
Yeah.
When you want something to be strongly emphasized, you can leave the line in that defines the edge for that emphasis. When you don't want it to be emphasized, and especially because this is going away, it's a side of the cube that's facing most away from us, then we don't really need it to be emphasized. But when you're drawing things like portrait, and the nose is obviously coming most towards you, right?
Yeah.
There are some parts of the lips and they're very chiseled. You may want to leave a little bit more of the visible line to emphasize those parts of the face that are more close to us. So we are kind of tying the top of the cube with its three main sections: brightest, whitest, slightly darker, darkest. We're tying them to the background now. Because if we are to make this look right, the background has to come in sync. And right here, I can just clean this up because this line is intruding into my top a bit too much. And because this is definitely has to be lighter, I want to make sure I don't lose that. And remember what we learned in the previous lesson, right? You were doing it with black paper and white.
Yeah.
We can intensify it toward here, diffuse it toward the rest. More intensified over here, diffuse toward the rest. As long as overall this looks like the right value. Because what you're capturing is not just the geometry and the mathematics of how the light works and reflects off of all the surfaces. So there's like math about it. How is it reflecting? How much light you will see? Why this would be lighter and this would be darker? There's that. But we are also seeing like optical illusions.
Yeah.
I want to say optical occlusion. I joked about it too many times. It's optical illusion, that something appears lighter or darker, even if the math doesn't support it. And what we want to emphasize as an artist Because you can make all of this very big and emphasize all of these edges and every tiny little wrinkle in the fabric.
Yeah.
But then that would be a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
Our story is very simple. We are learning basic geometry, light and shadow right now. All right. Within this area, where should I go on the background to make it better and fine-tune it with all the values?
In this drawing, are we trying to keep all the shadows like rough, like sharp everywhere, or are we actually trying to blend them in the background, like the cat shadows? I mean, because
so we are doing sharper, more defined closer to us, and less defined further away.
Okay. Well, I thought maybe we could shade a little bit here, like on here. Maybe a little bit, just because this is harsher than on there.
Yes.
So.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
Same thing as with what I did here, right? Because now that you're comparing things, yeah, that's how it goes. If I were to move on to the table surface now, and I just worked on here, I need to connect it to here, right?
Well, this one right here is a lot darker than this.
Yeah.
This is like like one of the darkest places, other than this area, I guess. But
Yeah.
that's mainly because of the wrinkles, I guess.
Right, there's like a fold that
Yeah.
makes it look stronger.
Yeah.
And we can do that because it's on the edge of the table, so it's good on the connection between the wall and the table. But how is it affecting the side of the cube then? If this is darker.
Well, it feels like the very edge of this cube is the same as this.
Oh, it's almost the same.
Yeah.
It almost like it disappears, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So every so often you will find it where this effect is the mildest. And it's totally fine to make a little part of the edge less defined and almost disappear. Here it appears again, and here the value is too similar to the background, right? Knowing where to let them disappear and reappear and emphasize is where artistry comes in. A real good artist will know when to emphasize and when to de-emphasize something. So I'm not going to touch this anymore. I will only go a bit darker here because I'm emphasizing that, right? And I'm definitely darkening it toward here. Then this change is not super sharp, so I don't want that to be getting too much attention. If it's not vague, it will be going forward too much. We want this to come forward. So I already softened up this transition. Now we can start looking at lighter, darker, right? The three sections. What are the three sections now?
Well, the other darker one is here. This is pretty light right here, but compared to these two, this is the darker one. This is darker, just this area. Well, actually, right here is actually pretty light.
Next to the shadow.
Yeah, right here only is a bit darker. And right here is darker. The rest are either medium, like for example, here is medium, here is light, here is back to medium.
Right. And this is the closest part of the table toward the light source. So that's why it's so intense. So you can absolutely just go ahead and do that. So we are gonna stay away from the edge. Let me try and clean this up a bit more. Definitely keep it as white as we can. But we're gonna give a whole thing basically somewhat of a value. I see this line here, so I'll utilize that. I'll make that disappear and give it a bit of a value. Now it's really very light. I'm not going to touch right in here as well, because if I still want to do the table rolling, kind of rolling, right, I would want to have a little lighter area here. See the guiding line?
Mm-hmm.
I am making it disappear. Now the trick now is not to overdo how dark it is, right? Because we don't want this in the direct light value compete with the lightest, and we don't want this to compete with any of our medium tones, medium values, mid tones. Now here it's going further away, right? And you notice that it's getting darker, correct? So what is happening here now is that even though the light will intensify when it meets this shadow, what we just darkened will also get a little darker. And that's all. That's how you go about it. This overall gets a little darker. This should get darker too. But as this value gets closer to your shadow, it gets a little lighter. Gets that little halo. Now that we darkened it all the way toward the shadow and we left that super light, we can darken it a bit here, away from the shadow. Just not as dark as that. So just a bit. And not all the way to the edge. This is starting to get closer to light, so I'm leaving it untouched. This is definitely starting to get closer to the light, leaving it untouched and very vague. This, for now, I'll leave it completely untouched. And now I just need to decide just how far am I going to darken it. This is further away. I'll have a similar effect as here, just not as strong. That's all. I will go first a little bit against this first. Put it that distance. And then away from it, slightly darker, but not all the way to that. And now we have separated our main areas into 3 sections. The one we didn't do yet, not quite enough, is the light in the cylinder. It's similar, but there could be a little bit more done, right? So what should we do to the cylinder before we move on to the next step?
Maybe we can blend it a bit better, the curve.
I'll make the light,
The
3 sections in the light we want to stick with.
Yeah.
Right. We know that this here is the lightest, absolute lightest. So then we know that this, where it goes away, rolls away, this will have to be medium. it's not so bright, but right on the edge it is very bright, right? Then what? The brightest light is here, but this is already slightly less, except where it meets the shadow again, right?
Yeah.
Intensifies toward that shadow. And what is happening right in here?
Well, right here is pretty light.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very light.
Yeah, very strong light.
It's like
makes that
almost the same, I would
Uh-huh.
say. Basically.
So that's what I'll do. I'll just focus that this is slightly darker. I'll separate this, will blend it a bit more so it's rolling. And then remember this was a little lighter here, right? Just as it starts to get darker, it becomes lighter again. So that's what I'll suggest now. Where is that border? Kind of like right in here. And I'll make sure that this definitely stays a bit lighter, right? No messiness. So it kind of intensifies, and here is where that intensity is less visible, less apparent. Here it's more apparent. Here it's more apparent. And then before I go too far with this, I'm gonna make sure that this is nicely defined in here. No messiness. All right. Okay, so that's starting to shape up. Now that we've done all of those steps, the next step is to go into even further detail. Now you are really getting to the final fine-tuning, and the fine-tuning is where you like sharpen things up. So, for example, we can now start focusing on this really be the shadow that is the of the darkest of them. How is it also shaped up? Where is it really the darkest? Does it change at all? And so on.
Well, I think it's the darkest here specifically.
Right. And right now I have this darkness too similar to that.
Yeah.
Right? But what should be the darkest?
Right here.
There, right. So now I have to switch to this pencil. Alright, so now that I'm switching to a slightly softer pencil. So because my pencil is much softer now, I'm pushing lightly because it's going to go dark too fast. It's vague here, right? And it's almost like where this shadow goes under is where that's the only spot where this intensifies. So separating them. And just by adding that darker value, all of a sudden this edge of the cylinder is starting to stand out a whole lot, right? But the trick is not to overdo this. So I'm doing it, but I'm also like comparing again to everything else that I've got. Because if I overdo this, I will have to darken more of the other values if this is too dark. It can't be a stark contrast, not in here. Alright. So for now I keep this darkness. And now compare the rest. Where can we improve our values?
Maybe we can make this part a little more sharper.
Yeah. So because even within that, right, within this shadow, now I need my glasses, we see more details. And that is along rightest edge and along right here. But it's kind of more sharp here, but as it goes away, it softens up, right? Also helps to separate this part of the cube from the table. All right. Within that area, I see that again there is a bit more value where it's darker here, but it's much more light here. So it's also a bit darker here, but not right to the edge. This I'm not touching anymore because I don't want it to be super sharp here. I want this to be now vague and fuzzy. All right, I can sharpen up this here. And here the fabric almost overlaps, so I don't want to touch it anymore. But while I have it, the pencil in the area, I will darken this just a tad here, just to adjust it. Okay. Now we can utilize this like a little more details. Now I'm looking at it, I'm seeing that right here it becomes a little bit darker. And where else it becomes a little bit darker? Right here, but not right on the edge. And if I don't go right to the edge, that means that it's going to have that vague look. And this darkness that I just punched up and this darkness, they almost combined here and they form what we used to see like, right, this line. But they almost combine but don't quite. And it stays out of the whole shadow. This is the lightest portion here, right? And along the edge. So as long as I maintain this balance, I'm good. Just a little more adjustment. And here it almost disappears. And this value almost blends with my medium value here. That's where, remember, it wasn't intensifying, the light wasn't intensifying here. And to help it feel like it's rolling and blend this a bit, blend that is this transition, I am going to go in that same direction. Am I going to go right to the edge?
No.
No, correct. Okay, so I've blended that more or less. And now it's like, oh, the shadow's almost starting, but not starting. And this one here is also slightly more intense, but then it lightens up. I guess we can do the same thing on this edge, because it is also not super sharp, and just away from that edge is where it gets darkest. Away from the edge. So it's that effect is wants to intensify, but the edge is big. Okay. All right, this one we can do a little more dark in here, right? It feels a little too maybe light overall, a little airy. I want it to look a bit more solid. So, how do you like this value right on the edge here, and this value compared to all the values, and how does that looks?
Maybe a little darker, but I don't really think so. I think you can just overall just make this part a little more defined compared to this lighter,
Right.
because I think it blends a little too much.
Yeah, so I think it feels darker because it just needs to be more
Yeah.
off. So I wouldn't make it darker yet, but I would give it a more area. This one is where even within its darkness of the cube, it intensifies right on this corner, right? But as it goes down and meets with this shadow, it stays lighter. So that's another nuance within what we first made as the darkest portion of the shadow, right? So now we're adding that bit of nuance to it. Now this part is slightly darker than that, and this part is slightly darker than that. Just you have to be able to judge by how far not to go and how far to do go. Compare this area to this area in value.
The light area right here to this one.
Yeah. Even though this part of the cube is coming right at us, this feels so much darker.
Yeah,
now
this does
compared
feel
to that, right?
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that this looks very sharp, but we don't want it to compete with that in value, especially because we have this light right here, right? So I will very carefully make sure that this is also very slowly transitioning. And where is this intense darkness starts on this line?
Where the darkness starts?
Where the intense darkness starts. Since it's becoming
Near
lighter,
here.
yeah, somewhere in there it really starts to show as much more intense. So I will push with my pencil, like right on the line. Then intensify and blend away. And so it doesn't look too all vertical and all in this direction. I'll go ahead and change direction with this lighter pencil. It won't change my value too much, but it will give me that additional layer. And obviously this needs to be looking a bit sharper, not as vague. So I kind of restored my lines, but what is happening overall in that fabric in the back, but becoming a tad lighter. So before it was too messy, now I can just lift up a bit compared to the rest. It's sharpening up nicely. What else within this side that we can improve? We're comparing values to each other, right?
Yeah.
Compare to here to there. And to obviously to the staged still life.
For me, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But this part seems a little lighter than this. Or at least this.
Which part?
This part right here, it seems
This
lighter.
Additional reflection.
Yeah, this seems lighter than this area right here. But I don't know.
I see this area as a slightly lighter, but I don't know if it's lighter than that. Like that. Maybe it's a bit too extreme.
Yeah.
But I will judge that at the end. Right now I'll soften it up. This is really like the final stage of judgment. But within here, is there any more adjustments we can do?
We can make the edge right here, it feels lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because compared to this, but the very edge.
Yes, true, true. It's also closer to all of this,
Yeah.
which casts that reflected light.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the lightest
Mhm.
part
Yeah.
of all the lighter reflections. So even this now can be a little darker.
Mm-hmm.
Not by a lot, but by a little. And this. And we have room here, values-wise.
Mm-hmm.
We have room to give it a bit darker area. But you see, you have to go over all of this as well. Does it feel lighter now?
Yeah.
Do you think it could be pushed more?
Yeah. Maybe a little bit. Not so much though.
Uh-huh. So that means, for example, right here. If I push this a little darker, it gives me more room to work with that value. You see, I am not using an eraser to lighten.
Mm-hmm.
How's that?
I think it's pretty good now.
So it definitely looks like it's lighter on that edge.
Yeah.
Then this is the next lightest, and through the middle, and then definitely darker. So that's how you have to go about it. Same thing. We can work within here, for example, right? We can further intensify this edge by adding a few more darker lines in here. And you can go away from this corner, because basically that's your darker part of that value. And to really emphasize how much lighter it is, you can start stopping your lines right near the edge. And you see how I change direction? It helps to push lighter, so you're not doing a lot of darker lines, but still make a big difference. Because you're going across the other lines. So by changing direction like this, and I'm back to my lighter, harder pencil, you have a value change that is very minute, not near that strong. Now that there is a stronger change here, we can add a little bit more of this effect in here as well. Let's change direction a bit. And of course, the true brightest, whitest light is going to be right on, well, for example, on this edge here. Because that one is right toward the light. Depending on how far you wanted to go into the detail, you could actually go and very carefully stake out that line for the brightest highlight. So you need to continue in such manner. For example, right here, I will go in this direction very lightly. Add that curvature, the feel of curvature, without changing the value too much. You can add a bit of a feel of curvature here and further give it slightly darker value, right? Through the middle to emphasize intensity of light right here. And see how it's very big, very hard to tell the difference, the change, and yet it makes it much more like it's rotating. So my lines are not curved, not really, not much, but pretty much straight. But if I go here, I go in this direction, then I change direction, then I change direction once again. To where my brightest light ends up going right here, right? I can do the same thing here. Once again, intensify the light. So on the table, because we have that fabric, it's a little rough, but we're simplifying. Just flatten it out. Don't worry about all the little wrinkles. Same thing here. Same effect. So if you stand back now and take a look and compare the values and confidence, what do you think? It feels like the table's going away, right?
Yeah.
To that distance.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted. We want right here this to be definitely lighter. And as it goes behind and changes directions from vertical to horizontal, it's getting darker. And because this is getting darker and this is lighter, it still feels like it's part of the same table, only here it's closer to it. Let's give this a bit more of the value. And leave the sketch, just so it doesn't compete with anything else. You see how even though we have like brightest white, slightly darker, and probably the darkest here, and then the white again, you hardly notice it now. If we did it in the beginning, it would be very noticeable because everything was white, but now that we got all kinds of other values in here, now we notice it more. So you can utilize that and use it for your advantage and give it a bit more punch by pushing this a little bit more into the distance. Because if you darken it right here and you still make sure that this is light and then this is darker, it has that effect to where it intensifies before a darker one. It becomes lighter before this is darker, but it's not the same as this light here. So the spotlight still feels like it's on here. Spotlight is on there. This could go now a bit darker. Leaving it also here. And how would you compare this side of the cube to the background?
They are quite similar, but I would say this is a little darker actually. Or at least the top part of
Where
it.
it meets the light.
Yeah. But, oh, well, yeah. Well, right here, they look pretty similar.
And so while this is very strong here, strong transition, and you can certainly get it slightly darker, emphasize that. I also feel like right here, back here, it's also kind of intense. A little bit more intense than what I'm seeing currently. I think I'll switch to my other one. Helps to push the cube forward more. Not so much here, but right and back here. And perhaps a bit more here. So I don't want to lose my straightness here, right? It's kind of critical. But at the same time, I don't want it to be so sharp that it competes with what's going on right here. All right, so pretty much at this point, you will have a lot of standing back, looking, comparing what you have, comparing to the actual still life in front of you, and thinking what else can we fine tune. And the best thing to actually put it aside for a week and come back to it with fresh eyes in a week. And then you'll be able to see it better. Fresh. Okay. Any other questions or suggestions?
No, I don't have it. I don't have any yet, at least.
Yeah. So, I can probably work a little bit more within here, but pretty much that first take was pretty good. The brightest part of the side of the cylinder is where?
Here? I would say like this.
Yeah. So that means that if I'm to make this the brightest, I can go ahead and give this a bit more of a value, right? But I have to go over pretty much over the whole thing. To make sure that this indeed stays lighter and everything else gets fine-tuned a bit darker.